I-V-M.
Helping us pay our bills this week is Setu IMAX. For more information, go to setu.in. Welcome to episode 53 of Shunya 1. I'm Amit Doshi. Unfortunately, Shiladitya couldn't be in the studio today, but he is on the phone with us. Hey, Sheila.
Yes, what's up? How are you doing, Amit?
I'm doing good, but are you excited about episode 53? This is 1 year over exactly.
Yes, this day last year was when we recorded the first ever episode of Shunya 1. And I don't think we even had a name back then.
No, I don't think we did. I think when we sat with Girish, I think we came up with the name after we finished recording with Girish. That's when we came up with the name, I think.
Yeah. And it's been a year. It's 52 episodes down. This is episode 53. You guys have obviously all heard about the 50th episode special which we did. And it looks like we're going to go all the way for 100.
104.
Yes.
Next stop.
Awesome. So today, just to kick off year 2 of Shunya 1, we have with us an awesome entrepreneur who's actually done a bunch of cool things, starting off very early in his life and is now on to a very awesome fintech product, which we'll talk about. So we have Satyen Kothari with us, who's the founder of Cube, and he was one of the founders of Citrus Pay, which sold to PayU, and has a lot of stuff to talk to us about.
He's got a really interesting approach to the problem that he is looking at, right? Instead of going, most fintech people are looking bottom of the pyramid, and he's not looking at that. I think that's going to be something interesting for people to hear about.
Yep. But let's talk about what happened in our last episode of last year, which was last week.
Yes.
Over to you, Amit.
Yeah, so we had an interesting couple of comments from people on Slack. The first one came from Ketan, who put his message in halfway through the episode, but still I think it's a good good comment. Halfway through this episode, fantastic insights. The one thing I don't entirely agree with is not needing deep domain knowledge expertise for solving with ML. We work with only insurance as a domain, and I think that we are the better for it because of our deep domain knowledge. There are so many underlying dependencies for any situation that one cannot do away with deep domain understanding. And so I replied to him saying that I agree, but I think with what he's saying, but I think Saurabh's point was a little more general than that, which was that generalized skills can then be applied to specific activities. So I think that both of them are right in some ways.
That's true.
Yeah. And another comment we had was from Suraj Srinivas. Very interesting episode. A couple of points to add. One interesting example why context is hard is the following. Consider the two sentences. A, the trophy didn't fit in the suitcase because it was too big. B, the trophy didn't fit in the suitcase because it was too small. It refers to two different things in both sentences, and a chatbot can only answer this by having an intuitive physical knowledge of the world. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big challenges of AI anyway, right? As you hit more context, I think we spoke about that. Context is everything. Machines find it hard to understand context, but we'll get there.
But and he had a second point as well. I think a more appropriate hello word for ML is linear regression because it introduces a lot of the common principles shared with even deep learning. I've been told that linear regression is what algorithmic traders use. Okay, I don't really understand that, but you seem like you know what you're talking about, so I'll just accept that.
I think Saurabh should be the right guy to answer that.
I think so.
Hope to have him on the Slack channel to do
I think so too.
But awesome. Let's get on with today's show. And of course, before that, a word from our sponsor, Setu IMAX, and then onwards with Satyen.
So as somebody who listens to Shunya 1, you're probably extremely tech savvy. As a tech savvy person, you probably look at screens all day. As somebody who looks at screens all day, your eyes are probably aching right now. If your eyes are aching right now, you probably want to check out our new sponsor, Setu IMAX. Setu IMAX is a modern health supplement which ensures your eyes stay protected as you enjoy all that screen time without any kind of strain to your eyes whatsoever. You can check out their website, www.setu.in, to buy IMAX. And guess what? You can get a 50% discount if you use the promo code SETU50. Also, we got a really cool contest going on for them. What we'd like you to do is share a screenshot of what you're watching on your phone right now, whether it's your Instagram feed or your favorite YouTube channel or anything else, and upload it to your stories using IMAX as a hashtag. That's EYEMAX, IMAX. Make sure you tag Setu India and get a chance to win a TV binging kit from us. Your eyes are precious. Protect them.
Hey, welcome to the show. Today we have Satyen Kothari, the founder of Cube, with us. Hey, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and before we get into what Cube really is, because I think it's still not launched to the public, you've been building it, and we've been seeing and hearing some interesting stuff about it. Just to give all our listeners a little bit of context on your journey and how Cube came to be over the years, why don't you tell us where it all started, I think, with something called Trapezzo.
Absolutely. So going back a little bit before that, I'm a Bombay boy. Grew up around here in Santa Cruz.
Like we all love to have folks here.
Absolutely. Grew up around these streets and went to school right here in Car, and loved building things from a really early age. Played with Lego bricks. I had one little set that I treasured and used and abused for 8 years. And then one fine day, I think it was 8th grade, that in the old pre-internet days, somebody told me there was a Nehru Science Center class to learn programming. And in the safe days of the 1980s in Bombay, I told my parents I'm going to go to Nehru Science Center. I took a bus from Santa Cruz all the way to Worli on my own. Wow. And I enrolled in this class, right? And I just don't know how we even functioned that time. Yeah. Right? Like, you just show up. Like, there's nothing on the internet, right? You just show up at some random time you've heard about and find your way where to go. And it literally was one of those moments that is a life-changing moment, right? I've been very lucky to have a few of those. And I learned how to program in BASIC, and I fell in love saying that, man, this is crazy. This is like Lego bricks, but I can build whatever I want without physical constraints of how many pieces I have, etc. And that led to me being India #2 in computer science in 10th grade, because I literally loved programming.
Wow.
And I built Pac-Man on BASIC, as well as an educational meteorite game to teach maths. Wow. And then I said, this is what I want to do forever. And then I decided to go to the US after the 12th grade.
Oh, you gave your SATs.
I gave my SATs. And this is 1990, right? 91 summer. I got an admit, and I sent a fax accepting it. The fax never reached, right? And just background was that we very simple family, 400 square foot house, 4 of us. So never saw too much money. So I was counting on the scholarship. It's such a lucky break that the fax didn't reach, because Manmohan Singh devalued the rupee that summer. Right? So what I couldn't afford was unaffordable by 3x suddenly. So I'm like, bach gaya. Right? So then I went to Bombay University, Vivekanand College, to study computer science and engineering. Amazing institute which works really hard to destroy your love of anything in engineering.
Like many,
right?
Qualities.
Right. But, kind of got a little spark of hope where a very kind professor at IIT Bombay gave me a senior year project in NLP and AI, actually. Mm-hmm. Did that. I was good at GREs in my scores, and, figured out how to abuse the Bombay University system to be on a top ranker despite learning nothing, right, for those 4 years. And
that's quite a hack, actually.
It's a proper life hack, right?
Yeah.
Good training for an entrepreneur always, right? Here are all the obstacles, figure it out. Yeah. And then got really lucky to get into Stanford, which even then was #1 for computer science. And I started in a class for robotics and AI. That was my major. And 3 months I said, I can't do this. Right? Really? It was 95, and we were playing with real robots, right? And making them talk to each other, etc. It was fascinating, but I said, this is not ready. As it happened, again, lucky break, I took a class out of interest called People, Computers and Design. And it's taught by this veteran of AI, actually, Terry Winograd. I fell in love with it because I'd been programming for about 8 years now. I said, now this is the next level. Why do people use technology? So that I changed my specialization to that. And then I got lucky again, where I got a long extended internship while I was on campus at Apple. This is just before Steve Jobs came back. And it literally, I think, was the best training even now after 20 years of a company that puts the user front and center. And I was a designer there in user experience, and all my engineers used to push back and say, Satyen, that's not easy enough for our users. Right? Oh. So that's a beautiful culture when Apple was in its really dark days.
Mm-hmm. This is way back when, before Steve
Gil
Jobs
Amelio
was doing Next.
Yes. Gil Amelio was the CEO, I remember. And Steve Jobs came just a few months after I finished my internship. And obviously he suffered for a few years there as well to clean up the place.
And Johnny Ive was not yet in the picture, right?
No.
Because he brought him in from Next.
Exactly. So it was a little dark hole there in Silicon Valley.
But they still had the ethos of what you're saying.
Exactly. Because, the people who worked there had to work out of belief. And it'll come back to how I'm building Cube with some of those values, saying, you get people who really believe, they stay with you thick and thin. They're the ones who work hard when market perception's against you. And those are the kind of incredible people I worked with, right? Arno Goodell and a bunch of others at that time. And then I got out of college, completely ill-prepared for the real world. And I had to rush through Stanford, one of my few regrets in life, because I didn't have money and I had debts. I had about 8 scholarships and loans, so I had to pay them off. And I said, let's get out, and took a first job building game software. And for SGI, which builds Maya,
Wow.
Graphics.
right?
SGI was my favorite company.
Oh
growing up.
man, it was
Yes.
nuts that time, right?
Yes.
And it was only like lots of crazy budgets, etc. They were doing well. And we had a game lab. Now I'm 22, imagine this, right? We had a game lab where once a month we used to go to Fry's Electronics and you were allowed to buy whatever game you wanted as part of the R&D budget.
Wow.
Right? So I'm telling my dad, right? This is the father who's sitting in India in a humble little surrounding saying, told the child, study hard. That's your only hope in life, right? I have nothing to give you and beautiful values to put in anyone. And I'm like, Dad, making games and playing games. He's like, I sent you to Stanford. Now you're making games. I'm like, no, but half the time I get to play them. So he thought like, hey, this is gone now. Hope lost. Super entertaining. This was in Mountain View, where the Google campus is now, is where I was. Smaller side. Larry, Sergey and I were all classmates.
Oh.
We started on the same day. So all of us have done relatively equally well, I think.
I'm sure. I'm sure, of course.
I think just net worth difference is 60, 70 billion, I think. Delta, chota hai. And then I said, I'm a city boy, so I moved up to San Fran. And based on that decision, started looking for jobs there. And I had heard about this amazing design company called Frog Design.
Oh, yes.
Right? So Hartmut, who had designed the first Macintosh with Steve. So it all ties around Apple and Steve and user experience. So I kind of was recruited to run the user experience group, which is effectively just me, right? And did some incredible projects for LA Times, SAP's My SAP. But it only lasted 8-9 months. For a very simple reason that I'd sworn to myself after seeing the hardships my father had gone through being a business guy, I'd never start a business. I love a dollar salary. I'm set. But, that blood of an entrepreneur never goes away. So I actually used to do these lunch walks with my boss's boss at Frog. And he's like, at some point, he sensed it in me and he said, I have an idea of something I want to start. Fabulous name he has got, Thor. And so we took off on a journey. 1999, he said, let's start this. I said, I'm in. And effectively now, I think the statute of limitations has passed. So I can say that for 6 months, I was illegal in the US. H-1B without getting any salary. And, it was like one of those conviction calls you do without thinking about the consequences, right? Any rational person shouldn't have done it. And I just did it. And 99 was Tropizo. And we built that company for a couple of years. SoftBank Venture Capital came in and a few others. But in hindsight, I realized, man, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to run a company.
You were building this out of the valley.
Out of the valley, San Francisco proper. And just made so many rookie mistakes in hindsight. Right? And
this was the proper .com.
Proper.com, but we were building software, SaaS, effectively, which was also not a smart thing, right? Go with the fashionable thing if you want to do it, right? But after the bubble burst, we were more in fashion because we actually had a real product making real revenues.
Right.
But the climate was so sour that the board said we should sell it. This is not going to improve. And so we sold it in 2002. Big lessons would be, just you need real world experience. It's not enough to be out of a good college and say, I'm ready to start, right? I think we have too many badges society gives us because you go to a Stanford or IIT or whatever, saying you're ready, and it's not the case.
Right.
So I paused a bit to lick my wounds, recover a little bit, made a lot of mistakes in not prioritizing my family, my friends enough, And then I started almost like a hobby company. I said, I need to learn how to run a business, right? It has to make money. So an e-commerce website that was supporting artisans in Asia sell their products in the US market while paying them fair wages, handmade artisan tools that were not coming out of factories.
Okay.
So small scale, built everything from the website to the supply chain, was profitable in a tiny way, which gave me confidence saying I'm good at burning VC money, but I know how to make money also.
Nice.
And
it's like
then,
what Etsy is today or something like that.
Exactly, but much smaller scale, right? Much smaller scale. And then an opportunity opened up because I think somebody heard my name and said there's this ex-entrepreneur who loves product, loves design, and he's doing this little hobby thing. And they said, we really need a consultant effectively to work at AOL, which was at its peak that time at 22 million users.
Yes.
I said, they are really trying to design and refix a bunch of their products, and they need somebody who understands business, design, and technology. Would you like to come in? I said, yeah, I don't know. And then they told me the hourly rate. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm in. Right. So lesson, right? To know how to price your skills in the market once in a while. And I swear, for the first 30 days I was at the AOL office, I couldn't believe it. I thought there was a scam. I said, until the paycheck shows up, nobody's paying me this much. So that led to company number 3, which was this unique consulting practice I built with people I liked working with, without anybody on my payroll. And for 8 years, I worked with the giants of Silicon Valley, from Yahoo to Intuit, AOL, Cisco, bunch of startups, with this unique kind of play saying business, product, and design are all intertwined. And I can speak all 3 languages by training and by experience.
Right.
So I used to work with CXOs and people who'd always ask from outside, like, why would they hire you, all these companies? I said, I think it's just one is I understand the push and pull that goes in making business decisions. It's not singular. And second, as a consultant, I always felt as passionate as if I was an employee. I didn't operate from the outside, but I had no political agenda. So it was a win-win, right? I don't want a raise, I don't want a promotion, I'm just going to put my heart in. And I think it just led to clients coming one referral after another.
Nice.
That was on till 2010, and then one day I got up and said, life's too simple, it's too boring. I don't want to do this, let's change it up. So packed bags, gave 1 month's notice to my landlord and moved to India.
Wow.
Right, and said, this sounds like it's a promising place. It's fun to go back home. And started playing.
2010-11 was when we were just about hitting upon the whole internet wave here.
Right. And I felt like the government, now this is my naivety, I felt like the government at that time was rightly inclined to improve India, etc. It probably was, but not as much as I believed enough to pack bags and show up. And then, came to India and looked around at 2-3 domains where there were user problems. And one of the obvious ones was that there was no PayPal for India.
Yes.
Right? And we had companies, pioneers like BillDesk, CC Avenue, who were building the pipes for making digital payments. But there was no focus on consumer experience, no focus on efficiency of saying, why do 40% of the payments fail? They're like, the guy's option is not to go and stand in a line, so he'll try again.
Yeah.
Right? I said, man, that's an opportunity right then. Even merchant onboarding and fees were too complicated.
I think eBay had just started by Bazi.
Bazi was sold in 2006, I think, right?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah.
So Bazi had become eBay. And they had brought PayPal as a payment mode, I think. But
there was something Pesa Pay or something like
Pesa
that.
Pay.
Something like that, which is like a PayPal.
Yes, that was the internal thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't widespread. So I said, this is a great opportunity. And I said, I know the pains of raising money from my Trapezo days. Let's not do that. Found one other angel investor and we said, let's put in the money to build it. Hire the first guys, outsource the tech to Pune. I used to write the specs myself. And say, okay, let's build it. Let's build net banking to start. Then on top, we'll build a easy checkout layer in software. And I think it was just that clarity of conviction of where we wanted to go, where we got live in 3-4 months, and then we just had new products coming out every 2 weeks. It was like that golden phase for an entrepreneur, right? Everything's just working, click, click, click. And then the rest of the citrus journey is pretty well documented, right? Sequoia came in pretty quickly after that. We grew to almost $2 billion in runway by 2016.
Wow.
We never raised too much money, which was a good thing, really good thing. We kept control over that, maybe again from my past wounds, right? I was always a little suspicious of VCs.
Right.
I was like, no. Let's make sure that we're building it where we can have an exit when we want it, not that it was planned. So actually, it's misreported in the press that we raised 32 million. We actually raised only 22 million in our life.
Oh.
And we did $130 million full cash exit. So everybody was very happy economically.
Wow, yeah. I know it was one of those nice, proper exits for founders and VCs alike.
Exactly.
Instead of just being a stock sales.
Exactly. So all our VCs made between 3 and 5 times their money, which is a rarity.
Wow.
And a lot of our team members. And
I'm sure you caught up with Larry and Sergey. A little bit.
Yeah,
it's good.
I'm his sales tax invoice amount or something. But it's, I think one of the happiest things for me in that journey was, obviously it was a new culture for me. I learned a lot about people, about values, but also that if you give the right opportunity to the right team members, they can really rise. Mm-hmm. So we had 15 people who made more than $1 crore in stock options. Mm-hmm. A bunch of them have gone on to become entrepreneurs.
Wow.
Right? And I love that. I think that's probably the biggest thing I got out of the journey.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, VCs making more money, etc. It's a job. It's obviously an obligation we have. You see 15 people in your team. Our office boy made 50 lakhs because he was employee number 2 after the guy we brought on to run the company in the early days. And for him, he came to me and he was like, what do I do? Right? I'm like, wait, this is the amount you're going to put aside for your kids' education. And then this is the amount you're going to have some fun with. So he took his family to Goa for the first time.
Wow.
Right? So little things which make it matter through all the hard days.
This was all here, right here in Bombay, building out of right here.
It's 5 buildings away.
Yeah.
From where we are recording this. And it's beautiful. Now, what happened also in parallel with that is around 2014, I said, okay, we've got the payment gateway play working. It's a sales engine now. We got a new head to run that from First Data. And it was working well. So I said, how do we expand our footprint to talk about money, digital money around the consumer side? Right. And so to do that, I launched a division inside Citrus called Cube, which started by doing really super simple bill payments and recharges. We won actually Apple's one of the best new apps recognition when we launched. And then we added P2P and a bunch of other features. Mm-hmm. But around 2015, it became clear that we were having a really hard time raising money for our Series D. And after we raised, I went around and I asked the 3-4 people who were close but didn't fund us, said, what happened, right? And they said, look, we don't know which way you guys are going, enterprise or consumer. And some of them like the enterprise, a lot of them like the consumer play because they saw big growth. But they said, you guys seem unclear even as a management team. Mm-hmm. And we took that feedback. By then, there were some internal disagreements, obviously, about the direction. And we took it to the board with 3 options. And one of the options was like, look, this is what I love. And if this is not in the interests of the direction of Citrus, let me carve it out.
Right.
And the board was very kind and generous, the external investors who said, look, we love what you're doing, but we also sense a little slowdown in funding. And they were right about that at 2015. So, Satyen, what you built for 4-5 years, the mothership, let's keep it intact. Mm-hmm. And if you believe in it, we'll support it if you want to spin it off. So I effectively spun out that unit as a completely independent unit with the core team I'd built and with the IP and the user base.
Right.
Which brings us to 2016. And since then, Cube's vision has actually completely changed. Mm-hmm. It's become a lot more audacious. And it's probably given it's my 5th company, by far it's the most ambitious one, right? And it's a big reason for me to go to work is I need to be challenged as well. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing the same thing I did 20 years ago, it's not exciting.
That's right.
So, Cube is trying to address the problem statement I think that all of us have as urban Indians. Saying, look, I'm doing okay in life and I'm earning well now. And yet, when it comes to my money and my wealth, I have no help at all.
Yeah.
Nobody,
no clue what to do.
right? Nobody taught me in school, which is a great glaring hole, right? Financial education. And when I encounter people in real life, everybody has their own agenda.
Yeah, that's the big problem, right? Everybody's trying to get you to... It's all sales.
Exactly. Your bank RM to your neighborhood mutual fund guy, he's like, man, this is my quota. I'm going to push this on you.
Yeah.
Right? And when even if you buy it, right? So first time you'll buy it because you're like, I don't know better. Then you'll see your results and you're like, man, that sucked. But what do? I don't know what to do. Then you'll try and go on to a money control and you'll get just shocked with how much data is thrown at you.
Yeah.
And even if you do all of that, you need to be disciplined to do it regularly, right? You have to remove the time to do it regularly. And this is just the wealth part, right? And then there's other parts of life around money, right? There's all the bills you have to pay. You have to pay your house stuff. You have a vacation coming up in the summer. So you're keeping some money aside for that vacation. Now, guess what happens with all these inefficient elements? You're just becoming lazy, leaving it in the bank.
Yeah.
And that's the worst place to leave it, per se, because it's inefficient.
Yeah.
So one problem statement was people don't get any help on the advice side. Second was it's a lot of work to manage. And then the third one in the problem statement, which came to me after I sold Citrus, was, man, there's some really smart people who can help you get rich. But they're not available to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? They're only available if you're a ultra HNI or something like that.
Right.
I said, this is blatantly unfair.
Yeah.
The guy who has less money needs more help to make more money than the super rich.
Right.
Right? The 1% problem. So what Cube now is a combination of all of these. It's saying, how can I treat your money as a complete problem statement and figure out algorithmically what you need to do with what is urgent, which is your immediate payments like bills, staff, etc. What is important to you, which could be your vacation, going to Russia for the World Cup, all of those things. And what is urgent and important for the long term, such as saving in a systematic, educated way for long-term wealth creation. So what we built is something that you have full control over, but you don't have to do any work.
Nice.
Right? So you approve on the first Sunday of every month, just after your salary hits your bank account. Okay, this is all that I had set up. Does this look good? You hit OK. Effectively, in 2 taps, in 30 seconds, everything gets done. We pay your bills, we pay your house stuff, we save aside money for your vacation, earning typically 6.5-7% instead of your bank. We put it in your mutual fund preferences. We have equity advisory. So it goes to one of the top equity advisors of the country who only handles ultra HNIs, and we brought that ticket size down to 30,000 rupees a month that you can get in. As previous was probably about 1 crore.
Wow.
Right? And this is to push to make it all accessible. And once you do that, you're on the right path because the system reminds you, disciplines you to do this regularly, at the same time takes care of it for you.
Yeah.
So when the summer vacation actually approaches, you don't have to remember, I have to free up the money from my FD, etc. The system says, hey, you know what? It's July 1. Shiladitya, your vacation's due. Do you want me to move the money back to your bank account?
Yeah.
If you say yes, it moves within 2 days. You can use your ATM in Paris to remove money from there. He said, what are all the use cases that the guy needs to do without him thinking or her thinking how to set it all up?
Right. Amazing.
So we're very excited by it. We are in beta 2. We're going to add a bunch of new things every 2 weeks. It's also a team built on a lot of core values around integrity, right? Intelligence, intensity, we call it the 3 I's.
Right.
And saying the rest of the world can take shortcuts. We are not going to take shortcuts. This is a long-term game. We hope to be around for 20 years. We're going after legacy institutions like banks, mutual fund distributors. It's a long play.
Right. Wow, man, this is really exciting. Of course, I can't wait to try it out. And I have a bunch of questions. So we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk some more.
Sounds good.
Hey, friend. So if you're listening to a podcast right now, you're probably some kind of a nerd. A nerd at heart, at least. So maybe, just maybe, you might like another podcast about nerds. by nerds and for nerds.
It's called Geek Fruit, a community to unite estranged geeks from across India and later on the world. We talk about television, movies, science fiction, adventure, fantasy, etc. Anything nerdy, it's all here on Geek Fruit. You can catch a fresh episode every Monday,
and you can check us out on any of your favorite podcast apps, like my favorite podcast app, the IVM podcast app. Give me my money, IVM.
Good plug.
Happy listening, you nerds.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for that, eye-opener about your journey, Satyen. I think you've been, you tell the story really well, of course. I mean, you really have some interesting experiences from all the stuff you've done. And thanks. I can see where you're coming from a very UX and love for design, given your background and given your experience, right? And of course, you're putting all of that into Cube. As an aside, do you think that sort of took its while to get here in India? I remember talking about UX and design when this whole startup scene was exploding, and not too many companies really focused on it, which is why our products never turned out so great.
Right.
That changed to a lot of focus on design thinking, as the term became, and work on UX and so on. But I feel it's plateaued at some level. Yeah. I feel we're not going all the way with most of our Indian design, whether it's an app or a website or whatever product it is. What's your take on that?
I'm going to paraphrase a Steve Jobs quote, right? That design is not how it looks. Design is how it's supposed to work. Mm-hmm. And I think most people forget that. And forget it not at the design thinking level, but even when they are starting the company. Mm-hmm. Am I starting a company to solve a real problem or no? And that's a design problem statement, right? Is there a real reason for this to exist? Right. And you start from there. I would say globally, I don't see many companies doing it right. Right. So if you, for example, taking two simple, contradictory, well-known examples, there's a reason Apple is so Spartan on its website, because they want to have you focus on a few products that they have and pick one that suits your need and get out fast. But Amazon, which I think is actually fabulous design, is the opposite. It's a marketplace, right? Yeah. You come in and you want to be surrounded. It's like walking through a crowded mall. Products are vying for your attention, but they're smartly placed on Amazon. That's the only difference. They don't want to go Spartan. How much ever you think that might be your minimalist sense, it doesn't work for Amazon's design ethos. Right. And that's beautiful in itself. I think in India, it's the same problem that a lot of companies don't know what they're trying to sell. In the middle, the social was a craze. Right? Everything should become social. No, everything shouldn't become social, dude. Yeah. Everything is not worthy of putting up on Facebook or Twitter or sharing with your friends. Yeah. Right? Social payments, I think companies are coming up with how you can pay people on Facebook. Yeah. Why? I don't want to pay people on Facebook, right? I know 1,000 people. I don't even meet any of them mostly, right? Yeah. WhatsApp, I do want to pay because that's my contact list. Now, that's a very different play. The best user experience actually I've seen in India is Bharat Gas. Have you guys tried this?
No, I haven't.
Where you have to order the things.
I've paid for my Bharat Gas.
Yes.
Yes? I've paid my Bharat Gas bills.
But so they're actually really good in terms of how it works. But the problem is that you have to tie it down to a particular single phone number. Yes. That is the issue that I have with it because, it might be a personal issue.
I haven't tried it. What's it like?
So it's a IVR experience which I think is done to the core with this one limitation, saying it uses your caller ID. When you call that number, it says in this beautiful Indian accented lady's voice, which I will not mimic, despite the crowd requirement to press 1 if you want to book gas. Which is really bad phrasing. Press 2 to check the status of your gas. So if you press 1, it says, okay, your gas is booked.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay.
And she hangs up on you. Yeah. Right? Get on with your life. There's no other discussion. There's no press star to go to the menu. Of course, there isn't a menu. Yeah. Right? She does a caller ID and she says, okay, gas is on the way.
Yeah, because your address is set up as per your...
It's all done,
No noise, no nonsense, nothing about put in your client ID number. Are you sure? No, dude. It's like nobody's crank calling for gas, right? You're not sure, right? So I love it. And I think this is the core of how great design thinking should be. that what does the guy want? How do we get it to him on the fastest path possible? Don't put your business interests. Obviously, the business needs to upsell, cross-sell. Be very sensitive for when you do it. And I think you're seeing that backlash in what we've considered great design from companies like Facebook, etc., that actually really exploited our psychological need for validation by giving us those mini dopamine doses by saying likes, comments are coming in. And I think it's time where we compensate and correct that and say, how can we have technology almost become invisible to service you? Right? Saying, don't write to me, do the job if you're that smart.
And we are that smart when it comes to the tech, underlying tech, right? We are seeing that the tech is getting better and better. So it's possible to do that and not have to just use it to more sell you stuff.
And and to simplify, cut down the number of notifications I get on my phone. They become useless, right? For all intents and purposes, when I get if you open my phone right now, there'll be like 60 notifications on there, right? So, I'm not going to check anything, right? Right now, at this point, I'll check my WhatsApp, and that's pretty much it, because I know that I need to know that.
Notification fatigue is going the way of SMS, right? So I think just like how SMS today in all intents has
I don't
died.
read my SMSs. Somebody once told me, or just last week, somebody sent me an SMS message and I saw it like 6 days later because I don't check my SMSs.
It's becoming blind spots when exploited, and I think that's an opportunity. Also, your investors have to keep up with it, right? So engagement. Everything doesn't need engagement. It depends on the service. Cohorts were very big, right? Dude, every entrepreneur knows how to manipulate a cohort, right? So let's be honest about what the real metrics we are building for, and the honesty has to come from user experience. Back to your question, saying what does the user care about? That should be the metric I should be judged on, not some fancy board meeting metric.
Right. In fact, that's where whatever you're building, right, is also focused on, it's a version of a product which is for the mature market, right? It's a version of the product for people who are exactly feeling this fatigue of being bombarded all the time, being sold to all the time, right? So, and that, by the way, even though I understand it and totally relate to it, right, the VCs don't buy that simply because they actually see an India and a market which is not yet that mature.
Right.
What, and they may not be wrong, completely on
so
that.
So what
makes you go that direction and not...
I'll go hardcore cliche. What makes you build for India instead of Bharat?
Right. So I think it's the domain I've picked, right? When it comes to money, India has money. Bharat has money problems, but those are not problems of investments, optimizing payments, etc. There's a more fundamental struggle in Bharat, right, of day-to-day living, loans that can be used to improve quality of life. So one is the business segment we pick. Second is my domain familiarity. Look, I haven't ever lived in a village. I don't know how a village guy thinks, right, what his problems are. The people that are around me are still facing problems around money. And that to me is insane, right? And you're a vice president at a large company and you're still saying, I don't know where to invest, right? Or I come home on the weekends and there are 4 bills to pay. I know I face this embarrassing thing being the absent-minded founder where I have my house staff and they're very sweet, right? They're like family. Around the 5th of every month, they're like, Bhaiya, salary nahi diya. I'm like, I feel so bad. I drive to the ATM to remove cash to come and go give them at home, right? Because I have no cash income. I'm like, this is insane amount of high frequency, repeatable work that every one of us is doing in India, which is maybe just say 20-30 million people, not 1.3 billion, right? And we have the money. We need the time to be freed up. We would like the convenience, and yet nobody is doing this for us. So I said, let's just build it for this part of India, and we'll tackle what Bharat needs in some other lifetime.
And that's also the interesting point, is that most people, like you said, most founders you see are not from Bharat.
Right.
So most founders may or may not be actually, however hard you try, you can't relate to everything.
No, you cannot. There is a certain kind of paternalism to a lot of thinking of how, you're building products for people who are not like you. You don't have the same experiences, right? So, you're always like, no, this is how it should be, rather than what is happening over there.
And you can learn it, not to discredit those who have built.
No, of course,
you can learn, you can understand, and you can iterate. But I think going after this, like you addressed it, is definitely an open problem. Right. And probably a more opportune one because, like you said, we have the money. We are most likely to even pay for the convenience and the time that will be saved because of this, right?
Exactly.
So there's a business model right there, which I'm sure you see.
There's a business model. There's also company number 5. So you operate a little selfishly on what areas you're more passionate about, right?
That's true.
I like great design. I don't want to dumb it down each time, right? So it's this audience matches that need. Right. So a lot of factors go in and they are put on paper and some of them are instinctive. But I think there's a need in the of the hour, right? Because your banks are not doing the right job for you. It's not in the economic interest. Who's going to take care of your money?
Yeah. Listen, I'm already sold. Like I have so much FOMO about not being on Cube right now that it's like you've hit all the metrics which everyone will want to get in on, and I'm sure you're a big hit on Twitter with this. So
I'm supposed to be quiet about it till we launch. I control myself a lot.
But since you mentioned this is your fifth company, right? So what made you jump into another company immediately and not follow the most popular route of taking your time and taking a sabbatical or doing other things,
right?
Which a lot of founders we see.
Why aren't you a VC?
Yeah. I don't know how to do anything.
Or why aren't you a mentor?
At least not full time, at least, right? And I hate that title as much, right? I don't know what else to do that gives me this kind of satisfaction and kick and pain. Right? Like the days where I'll be kicking myself, but I'll take a macro look and I'm like, man, I'm so lucky. I can build whatever I want, and I have the team around me that is the people I want to work with every day, and I can solve a real problem. Like to do anything else just seems impossible to imagine that gives this kick, right? But it's also been 20 years on the trot doing it, right? So there is exhaustion in these old bones. And I feel it at days, and that's where I then convert that to an opportunity. So I've told my senior team, this year the focus is for you guys to become individual leaders, right? Because it's an opportunity for you, and it's an opportunity for me to think about more of the issues that I can't do 20 years running.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win, hopefully. We'll see. The result is obviously not done yet. But I don't know why other people don't do it. I think in India there's also a stigma of once you're successful, how can you be seen at risking everything and failing again? Right? And again, it's probably a flaw in me. I don't have any of those fears. Right? I'm like, it's okay. I tried. If all of society says, after citrus, look, whatever he didn't work, it didn't work. So what? I'm living life the way I want to.
That's right.
And being a VC is super tough, according to me. Right? You do all the diligence, you write a check, and then you're just hoping and praying in the board meeting that guy executes.
Yeah. And it's a lot of Excel sheet work, which is just not fun. I think VC life is Excel sheets and presentations. It's not actually interesting.
The great ones are there who do an amazing job, but then that's their DNA, right? They found it. I just can't imagine that. So I do angel invest a bit in things I care about. I help out those founders, but I always tell them, my values in the first 6 months of your company. I'll guide you on the big picture direction you can go, and how to make sure that in your SHA whenever you raise funding, you're not getting screwed over.
Yeah.
Right? So the moment I decide to invest, or even if I don't invest, I'm always on the side of the founder.
Nice.
There's no SHA which will have a term that I wouldn't accept on the other side as an investor that will put in. But after 6 months, I tell them, you guys will become domain experts. There's nothing I can teach that you haven't been thinking about for 60 hours, 80 hours a day. So then that domain, don't ask me too much. I can just give you something on.
I think that's what the role of an angel is, right? And you're literally the first person to trust them blindly, or more or less, with the cash and whatever help you can give. But coming back to your team, right? I want to ask about how obviously a lot of these folks were with you at Citrus and they've come on board to continue. And a lot of what you're trying to do when it comes to building intuitive products, when it comes to building high quality and do more with less kind of products, right? Requires a lot of very smart folks doing high value stuff with you.
Right.
How has that been? Especially because underlying tech also has to be impressive.
Right.
How's that been putting together a team here in Bombay, and what's the mix of talent like at your end?
So, it's taken us a longer time to get it out than we would have liked, and almost 2 years plus that we've been working on it. We took a couple of slightly off path directions that we had to course correct from, but last September we had clarity, and then the team has executed like crazy. To build the right team in Bombay is always hard, right? So I think, again, that's one of the factors that you put into the equation on day one instead of cursing it. And how we operate is we look at role model companies that we want to emulate in different aspects, right? So in the marketing sense, we are kind of the American Express Platinum, right? Great service, great quality of product. It is meant for the urban professional. In terms of simplicity and focus, we really like the model that in the US Southwest Airlines has, or a Price Costco has, right? Curated, select things, but when they work, they are simple and beautiful, right? So that's how we think about the product feature mix. When it comes to team, WhatsApp is our model, right? How can a small team of engineers punch way, way, way above their weight category? Right? And how can they do it? Because the whole organization has to be structured. They're not magicians who can just clone themselves and work like crazy. So the product has to be focused. They have to be the right guys. They have to be working in a small team closely together. So our team is 15 people today, 2 office staff members. The other 13 have 11 engineers, including the non-engineering functions. A lot of them are engineers.
Oh.
Because it's just think hard, right? Be intelligent, identify the problem, think, because we don't want to overcapitalize. We want to build it out where we are smarter in our execution than somebody else who is a much bigger bank or whatever else it is, some startup.
Wow. And that's been going well, even in spite of being here where, and we talk about this, we just did our 50th episode about building in Bombay,
right?
Where fintech is supposed to be thriving, right? Because this is your second fintech company you're building out of Bombay. Right. Although the first one now has moved, I think. So when you sold it, it's Gurgaon now. Going forward, what's your view on expanding this year? Do you see yourselves expanding within the city? What's your outlook on other companies trying to build out of here?
I think it's a myth that you can't build a company in Bombay, right? I tell my friends at Sequoia that it's crazy that you don't have a bigger presence here.
They actually moved,
Yeah, so they have an office, it's just not a bigger presence, because the 3 big $100 million plus exits were Bombay companies.
Yeah.
Right? It was Prism, Freecharge started here, and then Citrus, right?
Yeah.
They're all here. Like, where are the other fintech exits? And I think that's a magic thing here with the banks being here, the regulator being here. But also, I think it's a myth saying there isn't enough talent in Bombay. I mean, it's a city with 20 odd million people. There are a lot of good engineers who need to be here for family reasons. Right? Now, if you want to build a team of 500 engineers, you're going to have a problem.
Right.
But I don't think it's impossible to build a team of, a few dozen smart engineers here. Again, the problem statement has to appeal to them.
Correct.
And they need to be driven. But it's an excuse and a myth, I think.
Wow. I mean, so let's hope a lot more folks obviously choose to build out of Bombay. But touching upon the fintech part, one more thing. In my experience, and of course we've seen, there are not too many fabulously big fintech companies out there, because I believe working with finance still is fairly tough. I mean, working with it's such a regulated domain in India, even though it's getting better with more and more tech layers being formed and making it easy. How have you found it? While you might put a great perfect UX layer for the consumer, how is the plumbing in the back?
Right.
And how difficult is that?
It's a great question, right? Because you have regulations which are changing all the time. Then you have pipes that need to integrate into so many systems, some of them that are legacy systems, some which are just not
archaic,
wanting to work with each other. And on top of that, you're dealing with a market that's relatively pretty small. Right? So how do you invest in great infrastructure? And there's a problem a fintech would have, or even a bank in India, when the actual market size isn't that much.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're in, let's say, the United States, you can put a $20 million infrastructure plan because you'll make money off it in digital payments. So all of these are true. But now, again, being an entrepreneur, you say, okay, this is my problem. What's my solution? It's an opportunity, right? So one of the early features that I spec'd out for Citrus was what we called intelligent routing. So we would actually make sure transaction went through because the merchant could control which core acquirer, bank acquirer they wanted. They always had a top choice based on best rates. And then there was a panel where the merchant could say, try 3 times on my top choice or up to 60 seconds. After that, switch to the next one, to the next one. So you know that even the best guy is not going to always be up.
Right.
So you solve it with software then.
Yeah.
But all of this is invisible, but also it's thinking about the merchant, again, user experience, saying, dude, his business reality is his, right? Who is his top choice? Every Diwali, some acquirer would change and give a better rate. Let him have a drop down where he just changes that. So now you're hearing him and building that out. But now I think what's happening is, luckily for us, things like UPI are coming up. Right? It's a beautiful protocol. Kind of sensed it in 2015 when it was announced. A big motivational factor for me to push the Citrus board to sell. Right? When those discussions were on, they're like, no, digital payments has just started in India. I said, 100% agree.
Yeah.
The ability to make money in digital payments has gone down dramatically in India in the next couple of years. So I think payments now becomes a pipe, like how you have electric power when you buy a house, right? You don't assume or ask him, is that a differentiator?
Right.
And that's what WhatsApp has done.
Yes.
Right? When WhatsApp said we are allowing you to share images, they didn't announce we are a photography company.
Yeah.
Same way, payments is a pipe, right? The way you exchange messages, you're going to exchange money.
Right.
I think it's a beautiful thing for the country, not so great for payment companies.
Yeah, and payment startups.
Right. Now, there are domains where there are niches where you can be a payment startup.
Right.
But the plain vanilla, I will process a transaction, I don't think that's a real business anymore.
Interesting. In fact, I don't have a rapid fire question set, but I want to ask you your top of mind feedback about all the stuff which has been hot and now slowly becoming cold in fintech. So wallets.
Yeah. Dead on arrival. Should not have had that much money go in, ever.
Yeah.
It depended on a one regulatory line from the RBI saying, hey, no second factor needed if it's a wallet.
Right.
Guess what? They changed it last year, which is what you can't build a whole $10 billion business on that.
Yeah, then they keep changing it, and they keep changing it every now and then. They add more layers, they add KYC, they add a whole bunch of other things. Lending.
It's a country that definitely needs loans. I think there are 3 parts to lending, which is analyzing whether somebody should be given money to, giving the money actually, and then collecting it. We are very, very prolific in number 2 without thinking of number 1 and 3.
Yes.
That's not very smart. And I think the business models, the way they are structured, are encouraging bad behavior. Because if you're a fintech which is not lending off its books, your only motivation is how much can I give out?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's going off somebody else's books. So it's their problem. By that time, you'll have collected all your commissions and gone home. The problem is when the big bank says, hey, I have this little niche that I have a budget to lend to, the bank officer doesn't care that much whether the fintech is doing the analysis properly, because it's such a small portion of their book, and second, it's that particular individual's responsibility to make the business show up and work. So I think we've got very, very perverse economics going on in lending right now. You'll see some maturity. We already I'm seeing some companies that are good at analysis, some that are coming out around collections.
Yeah.
And I like betting on those guys. So I'm an angel investor in a collections company, right?
Okay.
In a gold rush, always sell the spades.
Yes. Yeah. Collection. What is a collections company? Do they hire goons? Is that what?
Moonlighting Uber drivers. He says, "Gaadi to hai, jaunga." Only they don't know how to read GPS every day.
That is awesome. But of course, the third one is, I guess, what you're also in the third rapid fire was wealth management, which is what your take is on. But I think the stuff which is already out there is in various levels of maturity. I mean, people are just doing either mutual funds or they're just doing basic wealth management, and there's a lot more evolution there.
Let me throw out a fourth one. What are your thoughts on card not present transactions happening at some point?
What do you mean by happening at some point?
I mean, like the ability to kind of do subscriptions, like real subscriptions through credit cards.
Absolutely. So I'll answer both, right? So in wealth management, I think the market is so wide and so diverse, and you can stratify it by what somebody at a particular income level needs. And there's huge opportunity. I don't think by far it's a winner take all. The catch will be whether users trust these new solutions enough, or do they trust their bank RM by default. And I think that's also an easily solvable problem, because once you've been screwed over, you don't trust that guy. But also, I think even for people like us, what we don't realize is there are certain asset products that are available that are super lucrative and simple, but nobody tells you about them. So how do you bring them in which have high liquidity, clarity on risk, easy transparency to track where you are, somebody guiding you what's a good proportion of your portfolio to put where? And I think right now the kind of current crop you're seeing are guys who are in a way commodified. Here's a product, right? Buy it. Mutual fund. I'm just making it a little easier on the app. Some are better, obviously, but in general, I think that next level of sophistication is going to come in dramatically quickly. And I think that's going to be great for the country, not so great for some of the legacy guys.
Nice.
Number 4 on your subscription, I think UPI 2.0 is trying to push for that. And that's going to be brilliant because there are legitimate use cases where subscriptions matter.
There are many.
Right?
There are many. I mean, for the podcasting business particularly, it's an important thing, because if you look at what's happened in the rest of the world, subscription businesses are the people who have advertised on podcasting businesses.
Absolutely. And it's a user pain as well, right? I don't want to pay 99 cents every month.
No, I don't want to pay, or I don't want to be in it. Like, for example, there is this Moja Club, right, which is this socks club. You got to pay for 6 months in advance. So I don't want to do that, right? I want it to be that 400 rupee per month kind of charge that you just keep taking.
You have a subscription for socks?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. We had them as sponsors once upon a time.
Interesting.
It's run out, obviously.
Wow.
But, so the wallet and this play is intertwined, and I've said in a few forums, right? The RBI actually literally needs to have a single algorithmic line. Now, this is my programmer blood showing, which solves both problems. That for any transaction below X, there's no second factor needed. And X will be the lower of the one defined either by the user or by the issuer.
Right.
That's all you need. So if I'm comfortable saying up to 2,000 rupees a month, I don't need a second factor. As long as my bank says your credit limit your risk limit is okay to 2,000, who's objecting? Right? We have third-party limits that banks set up for our transfers. Why can't they set up a payment limit?
That makes sense.
So wallets go away. Everybody's problem is solved without anybody being exposed to fraud.
I've been asking for that, but no one. The banks think they know better. That's the bigger problem. That's the bigger problem. But thanks so much, Satyen. This was amazing, and we got really deep into a lot of stuff about payments, which is very interesting for me. So I love it all the time. And thanks so much for doing this. Thanks so much for sharing your story. And do join our Slack channel and tell people how they can reach out to you on Twitter.
Sounds good. SATY_77. Shitty handle, I know, but it works.
Awesome.
Also, please go to the iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and give us a review, rating, whatever you can. All that stuff really helps. So please do that.
Perfect.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Believe it or not, you stare at digital screens for 6 hours every single day. This makes your eyes age faster than the rest of your body. You're staring at screens as you're browsing through your Instagram or reading an ebook or even making a business proposal. What if your eyes could go to a natural spa and rejuvenate themselves? Made with the best ingredients sourced from nature, Setu IMAX is a modern health supplement that protects and rejuvenates your eyes from all that strain from digital screens. Setu IMAX is enriched with carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, making it the perfect nutritional filter for the digital age. Check out www.setu.in to buy IMAX, and you can get up to 50% off if you use the promo code SETU50. Also, head to the Instagram page where we have a contest running for you. Share a screenshot of what you're watching on your phone right now, whether it's your Instagram feed or your favorite YouTube channel or anything else, and upload it to your stories using IMAX as a hashtag. That's IYEMAX. Also, make sure you tag Setu India and we'll give you a chance to win a TV binging kit from us. Protect your eyes, or rather, screenproof them.
As you can see, we have a podcast listener in his natural habitat. Millions of years of evolution have led him to this point. He's on his way to work, and listening to podcasts makes his miserable day better. He will now head to work and use all his knowledge to communicate with other colleagues and possibly future mates. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out all the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.